UMass is going all in on football after it announced all of its sports teams are going to be joining the Mid-American Conference, the MAC. A few I's are still left to be dotted, there are a few T's to cross, but this is a done deal. For the Minutemen, this is a full circle moment for their athletic department after it rejected the same invitation from the MAC in 2014. That was done so it could keep its non-football sports teams in the Atlantic 10 Conference. A lot has since changed across the college landscape. The decision to decline the original MAC invitation nearly a decade ago saw its football program go independent, a decision that has since yielded about 16 wins in 7 years. With the rise of New Mexico State and UConn's bowl bid under Jim Mora a few seasons ago, this has made UMass unquestionably the most consistently bad college football team in the nation. In any given year, a team may have a worse record than the Minutemen, but no program matches their body of work in terms of futility since 2014. Let's be honest here, this is the last chance for UMass to make football work at the FBS level. The administration is going all in on Pigskin. There's no question about it. But why now? And can this move spark a turnaround for the Minutemen? I'm Cheyenne Hollis, this is The Touchback, and well, a Reddit user has a far better pun than anything I could ever dream of when it relates to UMass and the MAC. If you're interested in a few more UMass MAC related puns, I'll put a link to that Reddit thread in the description of this video because there are some other good ones there as well. Anyway, as it relates to the topic today, we first must ask this question. Why did UMass reject the MAC's original invitation to join the conference in 2014? The answer to that question is basketball. UMass has first and foremost historically been a basketball school, although not a particularly good one if we're being quite frank. For most folks growing up in the 90s though, we think of Marcus Camby and John Calipari anytime anyone brings up the Minutemen. And while things before and after that run haven't quite matched the success achieved during the Calipari years, basketball has still been by and large the priority for the school. To that end, swapping the Atlantic 10 for the MAC in 2014 was a bad decision basketball-wise. The team was finally gaining some momentum under then head coach Derek Kellogg. Let's not forget, at this moment in time, the Atlantic 10 was getting 3, 4, 5 schools into the NCAA tournament. Hell, in 2014, the 2013-2014 season, 6 Atlantic 10 schools made it to March Madness. The MAC was, is, and probably will forever be a one-bid league when it comes to the NCAA tournament. So when UMass was asked to commit fully to the MAC in 2014, they were quite hesitant, and rightfully so. Doing so would have been a downgrade for basketball and really a majority of the other sports where the A10 had a higher profile and better competition than the MAC. Both parties would go on their separate ways after the 2015 season. The MAC carried on as it has done for decades now, and UMass decided that it was going to chart an independent course for its football team while keeping all of its other sports in the A10. Fast forward a decade and a lot has changed. For starters, the Atlantic 10 is no longer the powerhouse it had been in basketball. There are a few different reasons for that. The reality though is that the A10 just isn't a multi-bid NCAA tournament league anymore. Some years they'll get multiple teams into the big dance, but there's also been cases where they've only got one team into the NCAA tournament. Meanwhile, UMass football has struggled mightily without a conference. The program finished 1-11 in 2019, 2021, and 2022. It didn't really seem like the team had a viable path to a winning record and a bowl invite without a conference home. Look at what being in a conference has done for New Mexico State, who just had one of its best seasons in school history. Being in Conference USA alone is not the sole reason for the Aggies' ascendancy in recent years, but there can be no debating that having that conference stability has helped New Mexico State find more success on the football field. With that in mind, the next question is, can UMass football actually find some success of its own? To answer that question though, we first must define what success for the Minutemen would look like. In that regard, it's pretty simple. It's 6 or 7 wins and a bowl bid. Really, that's it. Just something fans can get behind. It's easy to forget now, but before transitioning to FBS in the early 2010s, UMass was a pretty darn good football program. They won the D1AA title in 1998 and were regulars in the playoffs. Minutemen football was a conference champion in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and aughts. And while that went from the Yankee Conference to the Atlantic 10 to the Colonial Conference, that was still a big deal. They were one of the better teams in all of D1AA. That winning tradition has been lost over the past 12 years or so, where the school has just spent most of its time as the FBS doormat. And one thing that must be stressed here, that simply being in the MAC is not going to translate to more wins for UMass. They are 0-8 against MAC sides in the 2020s. That's rough. We also know the Minutemen's first go-round in the MAC was not exactly a banner spell. 1-11, 1-11, 3-9, and 3-9. Ouch. The circumstances between then and now are entirely different, though. The first time UMass joined the WAC, it was transitioning from FCS to FBS. We also know that the transition back then was far more difficult for teams to make at that time. They also shot themselves in the foot by hiring Notre Dame offensive coordinator Charlie Molnar to be head coach after firing Kevin Morris right before making the move up. I mean, not only are they undergoing this huge transition, but they're doing so under a new coach. By the way, Molnar, nice enough guy, terrible football coach. I cannot stress that enough. After he got done driving UMass right into the ground, he latched on at my alma mater, the University of Idaho. There, he proceeded to do some of the worst positional coaching you'll ever see. His work with Vandal's quarterbacks was absolutely disastrous. I cannot just tell you how bad things were for the Idaho offense with Charlie Molnar on the staff. It was yuck. Let's move on, please. As UMass enters the MAC for a second time, a better foundation does seem to be in place. It may take a few seasons to fully realize, but by year 2 or year 3, it wouldn't be surprising to see the program finish 500. It is, of course, possible they do something incredibly stupid, like fire Don Brown before he gets a chance to rebuild the football team. That would likely see them just end up toward the bottom of the MAC standings. Ultimately, the path to success is there for the program, but it's really up to them if they follow said route. For many folks, the question for UMass is why MAC and not just drop down to FCS? That is something, by the way, that has been discussed at length at the school. With Idaho having proven a drop down can be viable for FBS sides, that was certainly a topic worth discussing. That being said, there are two things that must be addressed. First, going down to FCS for Idaho was not a smooth transition by any means. It took the school years to figure things out, and even today, it is a decision that at best has been a neutral move. Sure, the program has achieved some on-the-field success now having qualified for the FCS playoffs in 2 consecutive seasons, but the school also lost a ton of donors, and visibility by and large is far less playing at the lower level of football. There is no guarantee UMass would return to FCS and simply pick up where they left off. Additionally, there are potential backlashes it would face from donors and from its students and just other people affiliated with the school that would need to be addressed and potentially smoothed over. That, by the way, easier said than done. Second, the downfall of the A-10 as a basketball power over the past few years meant there wasn't really a need for UMass to stick around there. Sure, there are some schools in the Atlantic 10 that make sense geographically speaking, but it's still a conference that extends from Missouri to North Carolina and up all the way to Amherst. When you compare it to the MAC, yeah, there are some schools closer, but there's not this huge geographical advantage between the A-10 and the MAC by and large. Perhaps most importantly, it does seem like UMass could go back to the Atlantic 10 with its football team in tow at any moment in time. By going to the MAC, the school is just biding its time until the future of college football is a little more settled. Right now, no one seems to have any idea what the hell is going to happen to college football. Making a program-altering, program-defining decision today would be foolish. I sincerely hope UMass does find success in the MAC and eventually lands that elusive bowl bid. You'll always find countless people out there dumping on UMass saying, oh, they're not good, they're always getting blown out, they should just go back to FCS where they belong. You know, maybe that's true. Maybe that's not true. What no one should fault is a school for trying. In college football, there are always going to be winners and losers. There is no ties in college football. Someone must lose. And even though the Minutemen have lost more than most teams, they are still in the game, and that is a victory in and of itself. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to learn more about some of the worst college football seasons in recent times, well, the video upper right hand corner of your screen, the place to go. Until next time, I'm Cheyenne Hollis. This is the Touchback and hashtag take it out to the 25.